Hi YouTube. I wanted to talk about my diaper bag and maybe some things I would have added or taken out of my diaper bag. So if you haven't checked out that video, definitely check it out. I uploaded it a couple videos ago. My so everybody's experience in the hospital is different. I had a vaginal birth, so I was only there for about 3 days. It was 2 nights. I also had a pretty quick labor. I started laboring at my home about 5:30 in the morning, and then I ended up going to the hospital at about 5-ish, 4-ish at night. Um, and then I ended up having my baby in like less than 3 hours. So it was pretty quick. Um, I ended up not taking my labor ball because I didn't feel like I needed to. I was in so much pain that I just really felt like I needed medication at that point. So I wanted to get an epidural, and I knew you couldn't use the ball with the epidural. So my contractions were 5 to 3 to 1 minutes apart, and they just kept going like back and forth, back and forth. So I didn't know if they were just gonna send me back home or what the deal was. But my pains were so horrible that I figured, well, even though my contractions aren't, um, regular, like exactly 5 minutes apart, they were like kind of skipping all over the place. I thought, well, hopefully they'll just admit me and give me some pain medication or just something, and then I ended up being like 8 centimeters dilated. So it ended up working out that I didn't bring the ball. Let's see here. I brought lavender spray and lavender essential oil because my husband and I both really like the smell. It's really calming. It helps us both kind of fall asleep. But for some reason, that smell just I hated. I hated that smell. It didn't even smell like lavender to me. It smelled like this weird rank smell for some reason. And I use good quality essential oils. And then days after I had came home from the hospital, the lavender smelled great again. So the hormones, I guess. So that's one thing that I definitely would have packed again, but I didn't use. I packed. Well, I tried to pack like a notebook like this, but it was red. I have no idea where that went. It got lost somehow. I think it got taken out the day before, and then we were gonna put it back in, and we just didn't. So anyway, that we ended up getting everything on the list. It was no big deal, but I do wish that I would have had paper to write down on because you have to write down the feeding schedule, the diaper changing schedule, of the what's going on with your baby. They gave me actually I requested a piece of paper that you could just write it down, but then the nurse took it from me, and then she didn't give it back. So then I had to. The other nurse gave me a new one, and then the same nurse that took the first one took the second one and didn't give it back. So I had to keep requesting to get that stupid paper. So if I would have just had my own, then I could have just, not worried about that and not kept bothering them about, hey, are you going to bring that back? Are you going to give me a new one? Or what's going on here? And it just would have been one less stress. Also, when you're sleep deprived, you got a lot going on, sometimes you forget things, right? I wanted my parents were in town. I wanted my parents to bring some things up for us that I felt like we needed. Like I wanted some fruit, and I forget there was a few other things too that I wanted a take home bag that we ended up just getting a lot more stuff than I thought we were going to. So just as I was thinking about those things, I was writing them down on a different piece of paper. And one of them was the back of the feeding schedule, and the lady took it from me. So that way, when it did become daylight, I could text message my mom or just tell my mom, hey, can you bring these things up for me? That'd be really great. And then she could do that. Oh, another thing was a nasal cleaner, the neti pots. my husband was having like a really horrible time breathing in the hospital, and so they brought that up with distilled water. So that's not something I feel like we could have really anticipated. We don't use the neti pot all that much, but we both had like these really bad headaches in there, so I don't know what the deal was with that. Let's see here. Feeding. Oh, the Crocs that we brought were essential. Oh my gosh, they were amazing. I'm so glad that we brought Crocs because I could wear my socks, but then just slide the Crocs on to walk around. You know, the floor is hard, obviously, so the Crocs have that little bit of cushion. I didn't take a shower, but I think that would have been great too to get in the shower with because they're not anti-skid, but they kind of have that, you know, they're not like totally flat on there. I do know a lot of people too that just took the hospital socks and they wore those in the shower because they have those little grippy things on the bottom of them, and then they just disposed of those. But the Crocs are amazing. That way I didn't get my socks dirty from the hospital floor and then stick them back in my bed. I didn't have to worry about changing my socks like every single time I got in and out of the bed. So Crocs, they were awesome. The earplugs for my husband, I didn't use earplugs at all because I was trying to take care of the baby, and then when people kept coming in and out, they needed to talk to me, and so I didn't want to put earplugs in, but my husband did, and he ended up actually, he didn't realize he was sick until after we left the hospital, but he ended up getting sick in the hospital, so he slept a lot, and I'm so glad that he had the earplugs because the nurses kept coming in and out, in and out, in and out, and they didn't need to talk to him. They just needed to talk to me, so I'm glad that he was able to get that little extra sleep. The nursing pads. So I brought so many nursing pads, and as I packed them, I was like, I'm never going to use all of these. Like, I don't know why I'm packing these, but I just am. But this just goes to show you to listen to your intuition. And here's why I ended up using a lot of those nursing pads. My baby ended up going into the NICU after about 12 hours of delivering him because his white blood count, I think, was high, I think. So he ended up needing antibiotics, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but I ended up having to pump, basically. And I ended up using the nursing pads to just wipe up that little bit of extra milk, or I guess zirconium or whatever it's called. So I used them kind of as like a little wipe kind of a deal, and they were soft opposed to like using a paper towel or toilet paper, so it was nice. I had brought a bunch of them so I ended up using a lot of them actually. I really didn't use the jacket that I brought. I just felt like it was too confining. My mom actually ended up giving me this little jacket, and like right when I think it was like the day of me delivering or the day before, I just didn't have time to get it washed up. But I love this thing. It's like super comfortable. There's no buttons, and it's almost like a thin house jacket type deal. I don't know. I'm like wearing it all the time now. Let's see here. Oh, the robe or the house coat that I brought, that was essential. If I could have brought 2 of those, so I was only there in the hospital for technically the 3 days, the 2 nights. If I had to stay there longer, I definitely would have wanted to have more than one house coat just to have a fresh, clean one. Because you are supposed to be walking through the halls. I ended up having to walk back and forth to the NICU a lot. So it's just nice to just kind of throw something on. So I was a little bit more covered, a little bit more warm, and I just felt like it was really nice. It had pockets in it, so that was really good for to keep my phone in, and I had a little snack in my pocket sometimes. Let's see here. Oh, the nursing dresses that I brought. Those were awesome. 2 ended up being the perfect number because the first day I couldn't change into anything because of the wires or the what's it called? The things that they stick in your arms and everything. So I couldn't really change. I think if I didn't really get that sweaty during my labor, but if I would have used my dresses and my pajamas and I probably would have used all just because I don't like to feel dirty. But I didn't use my PJs. I just used the nursing dresses. And especially if I had the baby with me the whole time, I definitely would have loved using the nursing dresses just because, they're kind of supportive, they're easy to undo, and they just kind of look a little nicer. I brought, in addition to his hair care, I brought the nail care. And like I said in my video, I'm just going to bring this just because it all comes in one pack and I just like to keep things all together. Little did I know that the hospital does not cut your baby's nails. I didn't know. I was told that they do. Not by the hospital, but by someone else that had delivered in the hospital. And so I'm so glad that I brought the nail care because like I said, he was in the NICU and they don't wrap his hands with the mittens because they said it creates SIDS. And so I was so glad that I had brought the nail care because I was able to use it, because they weren't wrapping his arms either. They were just letting everything like hang out. They said that that helps with development. And even though he was like really scratching his face up, his face was like all scratched up and all red, crazy. I felt so bad for him by the time I got to go see him in the NICU because they take him away and they process all the paperwork. They do all these tests on him. They don't let you see him, your baby, right away. You have to wait to go see him in the NICU. So by then he had gotten all these little scratches on his face. So I was so grateful to be able to cut his nails. I ended up using the wet dry bag for. I loved that it had like a little handle on it because I could put it on the back of the door in the restroom and have, like an extra pair of underwear in there and then my cloth pads in there. That way I didn't have to keep getting like up and down or like searching for my stuff. So I loved like my wet dry bag. I felt like that was really essential. I didn't use my nursing cover just because I didn't even have my baby there when people were coming to visit. So I didn't use a nursing sling basically for the same reason, but I felt like if I did have him, I probably would have used those things. I definitely would have brought more snacks. The first couple of meals that we had, I barely even ate because there's a lot of things that my husband and I, we try to eat very clean. So no high fructose corn syrup, no, I'm trying to think what else. No processed meats, stuff like that, no deli meats. We don't really eat stuff like that very often. So the food, I just felt so sick eating it. I just tried to eat it, and it just wasn't good. So I ended up having like my parents bring me some like fruit and vegetables and things like that when they came up, just to have like better things to eat. And then some of the snacks that I brought, I was just eating those like constantly. Let's see here. The vending machines were downstairs and I wasn't allowed to go downstairs. I had to stay on the same floor. So my idea of bringing change or anything was a waste. We ended up not bringing change, but my idea of bringing change was a waste. It also was a waste because the vending machines used credit cards, and I didn't know. I mean, we have credit cards, but I had no idea that they didn't take anything larger than a dollar bill. So let's see here. I didn't use any of his clothes because he was in the NICU, but he ended up having slight acid reflux. So if he would have stayed with us, all the clothes I brought, I probably would have used them all because he spits up all the time. Like I change his sheets here at the house at least 5 times a day because he spits up so much. And it's not a lot, just a little, just enough, to like get it wet. But I definitely would have used all his clothes. I'm glad I brought hats because the hat in the hospital didn't fit his head. He was an 8-pound baby, and it was a little bit larger baby, but it's not a huge baby. The hat, they only had one size hat, and it kept falling off. So I'm so glad that I ended up bringing little baby hats because they fit him opposed to the ones in the hospital. I didn't use the mittens because they told me not to. I did at one point put little socks on his hands when I was trying to breastfeed him because he was like, scratching at me, and that was before I so I went and visited him in the NICU, and the first couple of times I went and visited, they didn't say anything about the mittens, and I before I got to go get his nail cutting stuff out of the bag, I put his little socks on his fingers, and then when I went to go get the mittens, because one of the nurses told me to get the mittens because sorry about that, my dogs were barking at the neighbors. So the mittens, yeah, so anyways, we ended up not using the mittens. It's so funny because people end up buying me, like, I had gotten some used and people ended up buying me, like, brand new ones. So I didn't have the heart to tell them about the whole, what the nurse told me about, they can cause SIDS, and they don't use mittens, they don't recommend mittens, they don't want to put on mittens. But anyway, so we didn't use the mittens. And I'm probably not, I'm gonna give away all the mittens that I have in case someone else feels like it's okay for their baby, but if a nurse told me not to use them, I'm not gonna use them. I would have brought in flour sack towels, so like these, you know, just regular flour sack towels, just because my baby spit up so much. But I didn't have him most of the time anyway, so it really wasn't an issue for me. But if I would have had him more, I definitely would have wanted like more towels, because they only had one little blanket in there for him. So he would have spit up all over the blanket, and then I wouldn't have had another one. I would have had to like track down a nurse to come help get one, and that was kind of a task in itself. I feel like. And one thing that I wish that I would have brought, which isn't like a huge deal, maybe like a boppy pillow, or like one of these. I got this from like Motherhood Maternity. Those would have been really nice to have. So I have like a boppy pillow too. And that's about it. So I hope this has helped. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.